Hello, welcome to my channel, The Media. I'm Andrew. I'm no longer a day trader, and I will be using plain sense to explain my stock pick and investment strategies. If you like what you see, subscribe, like, and share. If you're new to investing, great. Use my links to get free stocks with Webull and Robinhood. Now, let's get into it.
Are they going to feel secure that the physical security apparatus is being handled by a robot? Aren't they going to miss that human touch?
Yeah, great question. Let me unpack some of that question because that's a good one. They're all good, Andrew. Don't get me wrong.
I understand.
AI really gets broken down into two categories, and I'm having just a momentary brain lapse as to what the two categories are called because there's a name for it, but I'm a little removed from doing my writings and stuff on AI. One of them is, I forget the classification, and you might know, but it's that general AI where, like, we're gonna have humanoid type stuff doing everything and scary, blah 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 blah, right? There's some stuff in industry, not in the security industry, but in labs going that direction, and that's going to be something that happens. I think it's got to be enabled by quantum computing. It just requires a tremendous amount of compute strength to do that, but we'll get there. In the meantime, the AI that we use, that Tesla uses, that Apple, Google, that everybody uses, is more specific or narrow. I think it's narrow AI versus general AI. I don't know. Anyway, we'll call it narrow AI for the purposes of our conversation. This is where it's purpose built, and it's like, okay, if I'm using AI on Romeo, for example, I have a variety of different inputs and sensors and history and stuff that it's acquired, and it's got a mission. Hey, I want to go from here to there. But while you're going, I want you to look around for this and this and this. It's a very specific application. It's not going to, crack into your computer and take your code, right? So those types of specific AI applications, I don't necessarily think that people understand that you literally can't wake up in the morning and get through the first 5 minutes of your day without some system that's using AI already touching you. Either you're using Siri's all AI powered, traffic lights, depending on the city that you're in. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. AI is here in our lives right now, touching us throughout the day. So that's one thing. Now, on the security side, there's an interesting phenomenon that we've kind of, I don't know, say discovered, we've experienced, which is how people interact with machines versus how they interact with people. And the example that I give has to do with escalation and confrontation. So let's say that, this is a real application that happens every day across the country that we're involved in. And the application is somebody goes into a restricted area, and it could be a school parking lot, it could be parking lot of a stadium, whatever it is, right? And there's the security guard there, and the security guard goes up and knocks on the door and says, hey man, you can't be here, right? Right away, we've got human on human confrontation. Can lead to escalation, and it does frequently lead to escalation. I don't have to listen to you, blah blah, right? We've either all done that, or we've all thought about it, or we've all seen it. Interesting thing is when a machine is barking at you, telling you to leave, it's kind of like I'm still trying to get my head around it, but it's like the compliance of people responding to automation telling you what to do is much higher from my experience than a human. So, we've experienced this on the face mask issue. Let's say you're not a face mask guy. I don't even know why you wouldn't be, but let's just say you're not, right? And someone says to you, hey man, you need a face mask before you come into the store, right? I don't need my face, I'm up, right? All of a sudden you got confrontation, you got an escalation, right? You got a Rosa on the wall saying, hey man, you gotta put your face mask on. You're like, what? And then all of a sudden, it's another step in aggressiveness to yell at an inanimate object. It's much easier to engage and get feedback from a human, which increases the escalation. But when you're on the machine, it's like, hey, we've all yelled at the TV, right? Okay,
you can't yell at a machine.
You yell at a machine. The machine doesn't care. There's no escalation. So it's a very long way of me saying that I have experienced increases in compliance for facility regulations when a machine is giving the instructions versus a human.
If Rosa's like yelling at someone to put on their mask versus like diplomatic Rosa saying, please put on your mask. But I agree with you. I think that is one of the reasons why an innovative company as yourself can survive the pandemic, because you're innovating your way through problems. That is the very definition of an innovative company. I suspect the sales of Rosa went up during the pandemic because of that.
The sales of Rosa did not. And the industry, the investor industry expected that they would, but America's pandemic response has been uneven and uncertain and unsure in many cases. And it's just been a strange, the whole situation is strange. So some customers use the analytic. A lot of customers talk about it, but don't move as fast as I want them to. I want everybody to sign right now. It's my job. But it is surprising to me. Nonetheless, that analytic helped the company significantly because it introduced us as an innovator to a broader audience who got introduced to our solution and our platform, which in turn brought other opportunities to us. But that particular element of Rosa, because Rosa does a lot more, did not get the traction that I expected. Now, perhaps under the new administration, depending on what happens, Rosa could play a bigger part, and that's yet to be seen.
Let me share with you my story with investing in Tesla in 2018 when it was on the verge of bankruptcy. I knew the transition to electrification is imminent and it's going to happen. And at that time, people were doubting Tesla, but I listened to Cathie Wood and bought into the company. And you already know it's explosive now. I think your company is very special. The idea is there, the timing of it with Cathie Wood and with so many investors transitioning from the value investing over to technology. I think the time for innovative companies such as yourself, I think it's going to be in 2021.
We're at an earlier growth stage than Tesla in 2018 would be my expectation. I think we're much earlier stage than them as far as matching business cycle to business cycle. I think that that's a good segue for me to share a little bit about my second mission. That's just grown over the past couple months as AITX's appeal has expanded significantly, which I really like. And I really like the quality of the expansion of our appeal, meaning that it's informative based and not pumpy per se. So it makes me very happy because it protects investors from getting pump and dump. But my point is, wow, I just forgot it. But give me a second here. I'm gonna get in my thoughts.
You're glad that we're not doing live?
Let it roll through.
Yeah.
But I remember the point now. The point is that over the last couple months, as I have really worked hard to actively engage, traders, investors, the public, it's kind of developed into a bit of a second mission for me. And the mission is to expand the reach of AITX's investor base. The bigger the base, I believe the stock could be more steady. You know what I mean? It's just better for everybody. And we, as an OTC Pink company, we're sometimes painted with that scam brush, that scam paintbrush, and rightly so. Okay, there's no question that the OTC Pinks have a horrible history of bad practices. But within the OTC, there are some good companies. There are some good companies, such as I consider ourselves. And I look around and I see some of these other companies, and I see some of the CEOs, not necessarily as present as I am. And I think that does a disservice. I think that I shouldn't be a standout company on the Pinks. I think that companies that are legitimate, have legitimate products, revenue, growth, and ideas should be more present. So my second mission that's just kind of growing or budding a little bit is to challenge other CEOs in the space and say, hey, make connections with your traders, be present, be transparent, and let's elevate this exchange. Even though I think by the end of the year we'll transition from the pinks to the QB. While I'm in the pinks, I want to support the exchange that we're on.
I'm glad that you brought up the theme of OTC Pink up, and I'm going to touch on that with a question. But I just want to share that I think one of the premiums investing in AITX is access to you. In talking about the OTC Pink, I also recognize and I'm very appreciative that even though you are in OTC Pink, AITX is SEC reporting. To me, it speaks about transparency. It also speaks about growth because you're already acting as if you are at the next tier. So if you could help elaborate on your plan to uplist in 1 year, where are you in that process?
Sure. So, I'll just talk about the pinks real quick, right? There's probably maybe 10,000 companies on the pinks. The vast majority, now don't quote me on this number, but my understanding is about 95% of those companies fall under what's called alternative reporting categories. This is where, in some cases, you hire an accountant, you show them some books, you sign off on it that the books are right, and they get published. So I'm simplifying it, but effectively, that's some of these alternative reporting categories. And of course, I encourage everybody to do their own research, do their own due diligence. I'm just speaking from one point of view. And then there's a small category of companies that are much more serious that are full SEC reporting, such as yourself. The full SEC reporting requirements that we undergo are similar to what folks on NASDAQ, NYSE, so forth have to go through. So it's important that, while we're in the minor leagues, so to speak, that we build out our team, that we're on time with our filings, that we have the support system to be compliant, that we don't have any flags, and none of the auditing companies ever say to us, we never have any statements in our filings where they say, company wasn't compliant with this or client refused to clarify this, right? Like we don't have any of that in any of our filings. So we want to be super clean, transparent on the file. So from being a fully SEC reporting company in the pinks, it's a very easy process, relatively speaking, for us to pop onto the QB. So there's no real, I think there's a couple small additional requirements, mainly related to reporting, but they're minor and insignificant given the reporting that we do right now. That's why I'm saying that I'm probably going to move us to QB sometime this year, just because everybody on the QB has to be fully SEC reporting. So having that distinction, a lot of investors will immediately have a little bit more confidence in the stock, and that should hopefully, again, broaden our appeal to a wider base. From there, we have to head towards a exit event, a monetization event for our employees, our team members, different investors, our OTC folks, different stakeholders in the company. And at this moment, my plan for that is an uplist into NASDAQ. And, done properly, if we subscribe to something called the Rule of 40, we should be able to, potentially raise even more money. Not that I necessarily think we're going to need it by the time we get to NASDAQ, but it would be available to us if we wanted to. But I think that it would be potentially be a great moment for the OTC folks that have stuck with us throughout the various uplists and the inevitable ups and downs that will inevitably come in any business that's growing. But timing on that, 3-4 years, there's a lot of unpacking of value that I need to do under the current structure. Otherwise, it's kind of premature. And it wouldn't benefit everybody as much as it could if I picked the timing properly.
Doing everything slowly but surely is the best approach. I really like your approach. A lot of different companies in the pink that I've looked at but I don't invest in them. They're missing the element that AITX have, which is the transparency and the accessibility to company head like yourself. So I really applaud you for taking this particular road. I think it builds a lot of trust. Not necessarily, I know you mentioned that, going to the QB would give investors more assurance, and I believe so. But for someone like me who is diligent at doing the research and looking for the information, I definitely value the connectivity and the access to information. I think you are doing, from my opinion at least, you're doing the right thing. From my YouTubing experience, 3 weeks, okay? When I started to look for information on your company on YouTube 3 weeks ago, there weren't that many people covering AITX. So that's why I felt like I had to do one. But now, 3 weeks later, there are a lot more. And so that was the reason why I think that it's gaining traction. There's something happening from the YouTuber perspective. I know it's not very comprehensive, but it's just basically my observation.
I'll share with you that a couple things have happened.